So welcome everyone. Glad you could join us here at the Detroit Regional Chamber. I'm not at the Detroit Regional Chamber, of course. I'm remote, like I think most people are. But my name is Devin O'Reilly. I'm the Director of Entrepreneurship and Detroit Engagement at the Detroit Regional Chamber. And I am the manager of the NeighborHUB program that we've been running for 3 years now. So this is our third cohort for this program, and it's been to date been something successful. And we've always done these information sessions in person and got everyone together. Obviously, that's not possible now. So we're doing this virtual for the first time. So bear with us if we have a little bit of technical difficulties, but hopefully not. So I have myself and Beverly Maddox, who's on with us as well from the Detroit Regional Chamber, and we're happy to have everyone. So we've got a little bit of slides. What I'd like to do first is just to give everyone an overview of what the program is, how it came to be, what it's all about. Go over some FAQs. They'll hopefully take about 10 to 15 minutes with that, so nothing too long. And then I really want to open it up to questions from those who are on. I'd love to be able to answer anyone's questions. I want to make sure that when you log off here today, you have all your questions answered and you feel prepared and good about submitting an application for this year's NeighborHUB. So if we want to start the slideshow. So first things first, what is the NeighborHUB grant? So the NeighborHUB grant is funded by General Motors. They are our partner in this. They've been a great partner in this. It's in its third year of operation, as I mentioned. We've had 2 cohorts previously. In those 2 cohorts, we've had 13 grantees and awarded them $290,000 in grants. Some of the basics on what a hub grant is. The project must be based in Detroit, Highland Park, or Hamtramck. We're looking for a community identified need. So we're looking for organizations and individuals to tell us what you need. It's important for this project. It's important for this program that we're not deciding what a community or a neighborhood needs. We are reliant on the members of that community and the citizens of that neighborhood to tell us what that community needs and what we can do to help. So we look for collaborative projects. If there's any kind of collaboration amongst groups, whether that be block clubs, individuals, nonprofits, small businesses, we always like to see any form of collaboration in those projects. And we like to see programming and activation. One of the things, one of the impetuses for NeighborHUB was to create vibrant community spaces, was to create more connected and more engaged communities and places within those communities that can serve to drive conversation, that can serve to drive more interaction and just more activity in the neighborhood. The next slide. So why a hub? So why do we call it a NeighborHUB? As I mentioned, the goal is to activate underutilized space. That can be everything from a park to a storefront, any kind of vacant space or space that may be being underutilized. We want something that brings the community together. We want something that cultivates collaboration and creates stronger connections with neighbors. So a couple quick project examples that I'll give. Here's one, community identified problem. What is the issue? Access to higher education. So what might a NeighborHUB solution be? Turning an empty storefront into a cafe to host FAFSA nights for filling out paperwork, application workshops, college meet and greets, career talks with local residents, creating that active space where something once was, and activating that. So maybe a collaborator could be a local community development corporation, a high school, nearby college, the Detroit College Access Network, which is a great organization. So here's that's one example. Another example. Next slide. So another example might be low access to entrepreneurship and resources. So a solution might be a local library branch that offers after hours space, co-working space to local residents with programming, professional development, capacity building. And that could be a collaboration between the local library, young professionals networks, networks like Prosper Us. Again, we want to see that collaboration. So how to apply? We're looking for individuals who are interested in applying to submit an application online by Friday, September 18th. So it is coming up, but still, 2.5 weeks away. To apply, you do have to be a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So the applicant does have to be a 501c3 nonprofit. However, as I mentioned, you are free to collaborate with any organizations outside of that as well. So a small business, a for-profit organization, an individual, whatever it may be, but the applicant needs to be the 501c3. The hub amount is $30,000, so we will, give you up to $30,000 to make your project come to life. We're looking for it to be hub-centric, again, specific. So, I stress that again. Something that we don't necessarily want to see is a project that's $300,000 and this hub grant is just going to cover 10% of your project. That's really not specific enough for us. We want to see exactly where this $30,000 is going to go and what it's going to focus on specifically. You want to make sure that your collaborators are on board, so including the owner of the hub venue. If you're going to propose to revitalize a space or renovate a storefront or etc., you're going to need to show that the owner of that physical space, the owner of that building, the owner of that lot has signed off that they're okay with you using that space for the hub. And then finally, we're going to want to see metrics and impact. This isn't a hugely numbers-based grant in terms of metrics, but we do want to see, what are you aiming to do? Who are you aiming to serve? How many residents are going to benefit from this? How many meals can be cooked? How many students can be helped? Whatever it may be, how much money could be saved? Whatever it may be, the more you can focus on the metrics and the impact that this project will create, the better. So timeline, again, to reiterate, applications due by Friday, September 18th. There'll be a review period after that, roughly 3 or so weeks to go through the applications. It'll depend on how many we get, and we've had a strong start to our applications this year. So those applications, the submissions, they'll be reviewed on multiple levels. They'll be reviewed internally by the chamber staff. They'll also be reviewed externally by a committee of community stakeholders that we've assembled to review these applications and to help us make sure that we're picking the most needed and the best applications from a wide variety of spaces in the city. The winners will be selected in October. We're still determining a date, again, depending on how long the review process takes, but we will select the winners in October. And we do look for the hub-funded projects to be completed within 1 year of receiving the grant. So basically, we recognize some of these projects are seasonal, but as long as you're showing us that this project that you're aiming to do, that $30,000 will be used within 1 year, so 1 year of October, let's say. That's really what we're looking for you to do. And then requirements from the awardees. We're not necessarily just gonna cut you the check and leave you alone for a year. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're up to, if you're facing any challenges, if you're facing any issues. So what we'll do is at least 2 peer learning check-in type of workshops throughout the year to kind of see how things are going with you and your project, share successes, share challenges. We'll look for monthly photos and updates featuring kind of your project's outcomes, what's going on with the project. We love the narrative, so pictures, blog posts, things you're doing. We look for at least 2 blogs about the project's progress and outcomes. And then at the very end, we'll look for you to kind of say what you've learned in the year of this project, what are some of the metrics, what are some of the outcomes. And so it's pretty light. I know, some grants ask for a ton of reporting and, really intricate details. That's not really what we're aiming to do, but we do want to make sure that we capture the stories and successes of these projects. So I wanted to do a little bit, kind of an FAQ, I guess you could call it, but looking at what makes a good submission. So some of this has been kind of explained already, but I want to reiterate it because these are the questions we get the most. So to create a good submission, to create a good application, you want to explain why it's needed. What is the problem or barrier that your community that you're addressing with this project? What could be better about your community? What problem could be solved or addressed? What are some constraints that are stopping growth or stopping people from being able to do something? So really looking at what is the issue and how can this seek to solve that? Focus on specific goals and metrics, as I mentioned. What area is this going to serve? How many people will this project touch? And what kind of demographics are you aiming for? Senior citizens, children, students, the disabled, anybody and everybody, things like that. I mentioned if it's part of a larger project, you want to show specific elements that the grant will fund. So for instance, we've had projects that were renovating maybe a whole park, and this was part of a much larger project that they were getting multiple grants from. But if you could show us that the NeighborHUB grant was specifically going to fund a new playscape or new signage, new equipment, things like that, that helps us kind of wrap our heads around what you're doing specifically with this $30,000 as it relates to the larger project. And I'll mention now that this NeighborHUB grant is not, it's not something that it can only be used singularly for one thing. It can go with other grants. So if you're getting grant dollars from another organization, you applied for Knight Foundation or Ralph Wilson or some community-based grants, that does not prohibit you from receiving the NeighborHUB dollars. Complete the budget portion of the application. That's really important. That's one of the things, again, that we look for when looking at these applications, obviously, is have you filled out the budget? Can we see where the money's going to go? And that doesn't need to be a line item of every hammer and nail that you're going to use, but it should be enough for us to understand where the project costs are really going to lie and where this money is going to go. Obviously, for hub-based projects, we're not necessarily looking for a lot of the dollars to go to staffing and man hours. We want these to go to capital improvements, infrastructure, programs, things like that. And so that's what we'll look for in the budget. And then we want you to be able to tell us how you'll share your story in progress. And that's something we can help out with. We're happy to help out with sharing blogs, sharing news stories, and things like that. But it certainly helps if you can tell us how you're going to share your story, through social media channels or through a website or just sending us pictures and information. We want to make sure you're going to tell us how you're going to make sure we know what you're doing and how you're progressing. It's something that's just important for us to see. So with that, I think I probably dropped a lot of information on you, but I want to see if we have any questions. Really, the rest of the time here that we have is going to be for Q&A, because I think for an info session, we want you to be able to ask any questions that you have about the program, about your submission, and we're going to use our hand raise feature. And so on your screen, you should see how to use that hand raise feature. And so if you raise your hand, I can see it on here. That's the plan, at least. I think I can do that. So I should see your hand raised on here. I can call on you, we'll unmute you, and then you can ask your question, and I will be happy to answer any and all questions that, that people have. So we're starting to have a couple, so I think Beverly is going to help me out with this. Hannah Hoskins, I see you have your hand raised. Hannah, can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you.
Great program. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm Hannah Hoskins. I'm calling in from Communities First in Flint, also in Detroit. If you are lucky enough to have been a recipient of a General Motors Community Impact Grant this year, are you eligible to apply for this?
Yes, if it was not the NeighborHUB grant itself, you're eligible to apply for this grant opportunity as well. All right. Next question, I have Tara Adams. Tara, can you hear me? Oh, we had her. Did we lose Tara?
Hello. My name is not Tara, but I just got an invitation to unmute. This is Suzanne McShane.
That's right. If you got a question too, we'll take care of you.
I don't know. I don't want to jump ahead of somebody though, but it was just very odd. Okay. So I kind of have my question's kind of twofold. Like my first concern being that if this is meant to be specific to a physical location, how do you see this playing out in the COVID environment? And I guess the other part of my question is I'm from Perscalis. We are already in a physical location in Detroit and are kind of beyond the capital improvement space. So I'm wondering how you envision this potentially applying to something that already provides education and helping to continue that to grow in the community.
Sure, that's a really good question. So, first and foremost, we obviously understand the impacts of COVID. We have our current cohort going through right now that was impacted directly with this, and we've talked to them and seen how they have pivoted some of their programmatic elements to a virtual format or to a compliant format with safety measures. So there's a couple ways to look at it. One of it is that, I'm fully expecting to see a lot of submissions incorporate a kind of virtual element to what they're doing. So virtual programming, virtual activities, things like that. We're expecting to see that. At the same time, we're also expecting, depending on the project, to see how some of these submissions could maybe even address some of those COVID impacts and have some of this stuff done safely. For instance, we had a group that is a winner this past year, and they were doing a farmer's market, and they were able to procure some PPE, procure some safety supplies, and set up the farmer's market in a socially distant way so that people could still come to the farmer's market, participate in it. They were still able to run that programming, but they were able to do that in a safe and compliant way. We saw some other projects this year that switched to virtual programming from initially what was supposed to be in-person programming. And I can say that that's something that we're flexible about. And so again, for instance, is if in your initial budget you had said, we need X dollars to do workshops and X amount of programming and things like that, and it needs to be switched to virtual, and you need to purchase software to do these events and to do these programs on a virtual scale, we will work with you to make sure and shift some of the allocation around and say, you can use some of these hub dollars that were allocated towards in-person programming, you can shift that towards virtual programming and virtual activities and things like that. And then to the second part of your question, if you're aiming to expand programming, that's certainly also something we're interested in supporting as well. Even if the capital improvements are already there, but this money can go towards expanding programming, letting more people participate and be able to benefit from programs and resources that an organization is offering, you know, we're very much open to looking at those submissions as well.
Great, thank you.
So let me jump back. Could we get Tara on? Tara Adams.
All right, I have you unmuted. You might have to unmute yourself.
Tara, are you there? If not, we can come back to you. All right, we can go to Linda if she's available.
Hi, Devin, and thank you for this opportunity. Actually, you just answered my questions with Suzanne's question, so thank you.
Okay, good. I imagine there's probably going to be some questions about that, how COVID would impact it. You know, I'll reiterate again, we're very flexible. You know, we want to make this work for you. And so, you know, we're hopeful that people will be able to do, to gather in spaces or to utilize physical space. But if not, we're open to working with organizations as they shift to a digital format for, you know, as long as needs be. Let's see, we also have Gina, I believe. You have Gina Tall. Gina, are you there?
Okay, I've unmuted. Thank you. Can you hear me?
I think I can hear you. Go ahead.
My question is, I wanted to have an opportunity to submit pictures, and I noticed that with the application, there's no space for pictures. So is there any way that we could provide that, because that would be necessary?
Sure. You know what? So we had set up the application portal to be able to accept files and photos. But if you're having an issue with that, you can email me your picture, send it to me directly. But just make sure the title is your name and project title. And if you're having an issue submitting pictures, you can send them directly to me. My email, it's on the website, but it's DOREILLY@DetroitChamber.com. So we definitely want pictures if you have them. You should be able to submit them, but if you are having an issue with that, we'll look into it. But for the time being, if you want, you can send them directly to my email. Just make the title your name and the project.
Thank you.
Hey, Devin. Tara was having some difficult issues, so I have her question here. She wants to know if previous attendees of the NeighborHUB grant, can they apply for Organization 1 in 2018?
That's a good question. Previous winners, you said?
Yes. Previous awardee.
Sure. So I'll kind of answer that as a two-part. First of all, if you have applied before, you're certainly able to submit again. If you were an applicant before, you can apply again with the same project or a different project. If you have won the grant before, if you're a grantee already, you cannot submit as the primary organization. We're still early on. We want to give as many organizations as possible an opportunity to get this grant and to use it. Having said that, you are able to be a partner on a project. So, Organization A may have won the grant opportunity in 2018. And in 2020, Organization B is applying for the grant, but A may be an organization that's in their neighborhood, in their community, and they want to support as well. So you can be a partner in our project, you can support a project, but you cannot be the main applicant on a project if you have already won. Moving on, we've got Mike Flores, I believe. Mike, if you're there, we'll unmute you.
Good afternoon. This is Mike Flores from Corktown Health Center in Detroit, Michigan.
Hey, Mike.
So my question is actually the opposite of what Suzanne had asked. So we pivoted virtually in March when requested by the governor, but now we know that people are technology fatigued. So we now need to pivot back to on-site programming, but we need to do it in a safe way. So we're considering activating a green space that we would utilize to support programming in an outside environment. I was just wondering if that would be a project that would be considered, because it would be very specific for this time period, even though the space would be activated, hopefully long-term, but it's very specific because of COVID.
Yes. So to answer your question, good question. Again, short answer, yes, but longer answer I'll give you. And again, I'll just fall back on, we really want to be as flexible as possible with this. We don't want to make people jump through hoops. We don't want to make this more difficult. And so we recognize that situations will change. And within that year, we have people finishing projects at different stages. So we have some people who are ready to go with something and they say there's a need now, and this money will help right now do this thing. There's some people that say, well, we're gonna have to wait till the summer to really see our project come to fruition. No matter the situation, you're still eligible, and it's still a worthy project in our minds. So short answer, yes, we would definitely consider something that pivoted back to a safe, distant but in-person type of a format.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Tony Russell looks like the next person up that I see here.
Okay, I just unmuted. Good afternoon, everyone. Tony Russell from Detroit Community Solutions. So I was wondering if grant funds could be used for a portion of acquisition cost, say a lot or something like that.
Good question. Good question. Yes, it can be used for acquisition costs of a space that you're looking to use for your hub. Of course, again, I'm giving you kind of my opinion on it, but I would say that we probably wouldn't look as highly on all of the money being used just to acquire a space. I think if you can combine it with some of the money being used to acquire, some of the money being used to activate or create something there, I think would be more desirable. But to answer your question, yes, you can absolutely use some of the money to acquire the space that you're looking to work on.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Next up, Patricia Dockery. We'll get you unmuted. Patricia, are you there?
Okay. I'm Patricia Dockery, and I'm with Stafford House, a nonprofit in Detroit. And we did submit an application online about a week ago. And there was a problem with submitting the application in that it's hard we completed most of the application, and then when it was time to attach all the attachments to it, we couldn't leave and come back. And so I end up submitting the application, but not able to retrieve it and add on the additions to it. So.
Okay, let me ask you, was it just missing the attachments?
Yes.
Okay. Again, that's,
and the budget information also. And so when I attempted to close the application so that I could add the budget and some of the other attachments, some of the other documents that were required.
Okay, well, we can.
Sometimes the applications, the grant applications will say close and revisit, and save and revisit, but that one didn't have that option.
Okay. Well, yeah, thanks for bringing that up. It's something we can look into and see if we can add that feature. Unfortunately, I don't build the back end of it, but I can talk to our IT people and see how we can get that to work. What I will say in the time being is, again, you can email, if there's certain attachments, you can send those directly to my email.
Okay.
DO'Reilly@DetroitChamber.com. Just send them to me and then include, again, your name and the project title. And I'll, there we go. There's my email on the screen. So just include your name and the project title, and I'll make sure those get added.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. We have another question, Keisha Jackson. If we can get her unmuted. Keisha, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Devin, so much for hosting this session today. I'm just had a quick question for collaborators. If we have a collaborator that is a school or a religious organization, the programming does not involve any religious aspects, but maybe the collaborator is a religious organization or a school. Is that allowed for this grant?
Very good question. Yes, it is allowed. We've had projects before that have utilized space in churches. We've had programs that have had support and partners that were local parishes, local churches, things like that. And so, yeah, absolutely, that's allowed.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. I don't see any other hands right now. You know, if you have any more questions, feel free to raise your hand. I will also take this time to say that we're recording this session. So this will be recorded. We will get it up on our website. So you can go to the NeighborHUB website and see this exact recording, complete with all the information on it, including my email address if you have any questions that you forgot or didn't want to ask today. Oh, we got another hand raised. Jess, we can get Jess unmuted. Jess,
hi, I'm so sorry. I'm mobile at the moment and had complications. So I hope you can hear me. And this is Jess from the Heidelberg Project. I actually wanted to relate back to Mike's earlier question around physical location versus outdoor location, because I wasn't quite clear as to if outdoor locations would be honored. Obviously, we have a good amount of outdoor space that's adjacent to several of our physical facilities that we would like to better activate in tangent with those physical locations for the purposes of this grant and other work that we're doing because of COVID and because of our other directions in environmental sustainability. Would us applying with some emphasis on utilizing our outdoor property as a hub be acceptable?
Yeah, great question. Easy answer there. Yes, absolutely. I can think off the top of my head projects that we've ended up funding. I would say almost half of them were outdoor based. Infrastructure improvements to green spaces. We've had people do outdoor stages for performances. So we've definitely looked at and funded a good amount of outdoor based projects.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I don't see any more questions right now. As I mentioned, this will be recorded. You can also email me, any issues, let me know. We've got a lot of people who have requested applications. If you have requested one and you received one, make sure you get that in as soon as possible. The deadline is September 18th. So nobody wants to be doing that last minute. So I would, hopefully, and especially if there's any issues, if there's any questions, I'm happy to talk to you about it. So the sooner the better. Get those applications in. And if you have any questions, just let me know. We want to make this as easy as possible for you. We want to help you out. So thanks again. I'm Devin. Dev was super helpful today and helping me with the logistics of this. So thanks everyone. And I look forward to hearing from everybody soon.